Good evening, everyone. Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach, Kavod Tov, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay. Looks like we're going to Zion. Yeah. So, anyway, we'll read the Shulchan Aruch here. יש מי שאומר שאם היה בגן ורוצה לאכול פירות כל אילן ואילן, sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so read this Shulchan Aruch. It says, יש מי שאומר, שאם היה בגן ורוצה לאכול מפירות כל אילן ואילן. It says, there is one that says that if he was in a garden, right, and he wants to eat from the fruits of each tree, כיוון שבירך על אילן אחד, once he blesses on one tree, אינו צריך לברך על האחרים, doesn't have to bless on the others. והוא שבשעת ברך היה דעתו לאכול מאותם אחרים. But that's only if his intention wants to eat from also the other trees. But מגן לגן, but if he's going from one garden to another, צריך לברך אפילו אם הם סמוכים. Even if they're close by, he has to bless at each one. ואפילו אם כשברך תחילה היה דעתו על הכל. Even if when he blessed in the beginning, his intention was on everything. Right, so the truth is, this is the Shulchan Aruch, but I don't think we saw here the twin bit Yosef. So let me just go back there and see if I can find this. Yeah, so I guess it must be in the tour, but it's not in the bit Yosef. So anyway, what we're saying is like this, right? Just to explain to you that if you're eating in a garden and you have several trees there, so you want to eat from several of them or all of them, whatever it is. So if your intention is to eat from all of them, you can do it with one blessing. Why is that? Because you're in one garden, which is like one area, and therefore one blessing will do it. But you have to have the intention. So now, why is it you have to have the intention for that? Because the truth is, when you're in one room, we didn't say you have to have the intention for this. It's enough that the fact that you're in one room, that's good enough. But here we say you have to have the intention. Otherwise, you need to make a blessing for each one. So the reason is because the garden is not walled in, it's not fenced in, like a room. So therefore, it has a different status. It's more like an open area, so it's not really considered to be like one fixed place, like a room. So therefore, we say, right, if you have the intention, then that could be, but if otherwise, not so. That's one thing. Also, then he says, right, if you're going from one garden to another, there you don't need to. It's not going to help you to have the intention, because since it's a different garden, it's a different area altogether. So there, you need to make a separate blessing for each one, um, even though you have the intention to eat from all of them, since they're totally different areas altogether. So that's what we're saying here. Okay, whatever. That's pretty much it. I don't see any Bit Yosef on this, so I'll go to the next one. And also, you can see from what he says here, Yesh Mishomer, from this halacha that he brings in Shulchan Aruch, that it's like it's not brought down in all the poskim. This opinion, it's brought down in one posek, you know. But he seems to paskin like this because otherwise, if he didn't, he wouldn't have brought in the Shulchan Aruch like this, even though it's one posek only, but the fact that nobody argues with this posek, and it stands as it is, pretty much, without any argument. So therefore, he paskins like it, regardless of the fact that it's a minority opinion, but no, it's not unchallenged also. So there is a rule like this in Shulchan Aruch, which is that if the Shulchan Aruch brings a minority opinion or a single opinion, which is unchallenged, we do paskin like that, even though it's not a majority opinion. Usually things like this, they don't come from the Gemara, they don't come from Talmud. These are stated by earlier authorities, Rishonim, um, as like some kind of a deduction, from all this, from all the topic matter. They make a deduction like this, but since it's unchallenged and nobody argues with it, so therefore we do assume that it's halakha in many cases. So this would be like a good example of that right here. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess we'll move on to Hey. And he says here, he brings a tour, right? Which is that דברים הטעונים ברכה לאחריהם במקום רשב"ם, היינו זין מינים, ורבי דווקא מין דגן והראש הסכים לדבי ארי. Right, so this is an interesting thing. We spoke about last week, that there are certain foods that require to make an after blessing in their place. So what does that mean? That means that the rabbis obligated you to bless this blessing before you leave the room, before you leave the house, whatever it is. And they don't allow you to, leave and make the blessing somewhere else. So what are we talking about, right? Obviously, that's talking about Birkat Hamazon, first of all, right? Because Birkat Hamazon, lechatchila, you're not supposed to make that in a different place. You're supposed to make it in the place where you ate. But diavad, sometimes we do allow, for you to bless somewhere else if you already left, you went there already. So sometimes we don't require you to come back. We're going to talk about that later on when we talk about the laws of Birkat Hamazon. But here, right, that's obvious, regarding Birkat Hamazon. But here he's coming to say also there are other blessings as well besides Birkat Hamazon. So what are we talking about? According to the Rashbam, we're talking about the 7 species, right? What are those 7 species? Those are the ones that we make, the blessing ala michya, which is called me'en shalosh, which is like a mini birkat hamazon, that we make on certain foods, like for instance, the 5 grains, and then we have also, some fruits as well, like dates and figs, and you have grapes, things like this. All those species that the land of Israel praised for them. They're special, especially the land of Israel raises them, especially very, very, very good, very delicious, whatever. So those fruits also, right, according to the Rashbam, those are also required to make a blessing in its place. But according to the Ri, it's only types of grains, which is the 5 grains, right? So what are the 5 grains? We're talking about wheat and barley and rye and spelt and oats. Those are the ones according to the Ri. So says the Tur, Sharosh iskim l'divrei Ari, right? The Rosh agreed with the Ri regarding that. So now we're going to see Bet Yosef, right? What he says about all this. So he says, Pashu b'divrei Tosfot. He says it's obvious in the words of Tosfot and Rosh over there, right? And Sham gabe hadi amar Rav Chazda lo amran ela b'dvarim she'enam te'onim bracha le'achreim. Regarding what Rav Chazda said, that we're only talking about foods that don't require a blessing in their place afterwards. V'dash data rif sham. So he says you should know the rif over there holds the dvarim ha'te'onim bracha le'achreim b'makomam haynu pat min dagan. So the rif holds it's only bread and also grains, as we said, right? With dafka ukedata ri, just like the ri and the rosh, right? Same thing. But according to Rambam, so where could be a Rashbam? He holds like the Rashbam, right? So we're talking about the 7 species. כל המברך ברכת המזון, שכתב פרק ד', כל המברך ברכת המזון או ברכה אחת שמעין 3, צריך לברך אותה במקום שאכל, right? So according to that, the Rambam says you do have to make this blessing in the place where you ate. Okay. Interesting. So we have a machloket here. והר"ן כתב פרק הרבה פסחים, so says the Ran, שאין דעת זה מתחבר בסוגיית הגמרא. So he says that this opinion is not apparent from the topic of the Gemara, the case over there. והגות מימוניות פרק ד' כתוב דאין טעון ברכה לאחריו. Right, so it says in הגות מימוניות that it doesn't require blessing afterwards being come in his place, אלא פת שצריך לברך אחריו ברכת המזון. So he says it's only ברכת המזון. That seems to be like a third opinion. Ad kan. So he says, but that also includes, he says, other types of grains as well. So he says, how do I know that it also includes those grains? That the Gaot says that the Rif is also said like that. But who's he says there, right, and he says the Rif in Psachim that types of grains are also equal to bread, so they're all equal. כתבו התוספות ולכל הפירושים, אם הלך באמצע הסעודה במקום אחר, יכול לשתות יין או מים בלא ברכה. So says the Tosfot that according to all opinions, if he went in the middle of the meal to a different place, יכול לשתות יין או מים בלא ברכה, he can drink wine or water without a blessing. דכיוון שהוא בתוך הסעודה. Why is that? Because since he's still in the meal, לכיבד כמה הדר, so he's going according to that right mode that he left that place. עד כאן, וזהו לפי דעתם שפוסקים כרב חסדא. But that's only according to their opinion. They go like Rav Chazda, אבל לא לדעת הפוסקים כרב ששת. But the ones who pass like Rav Sheshat, right, that's not the case. וסימן קפ"ד, right, in this chapter 184, כתב רבנו בשם רבנו פרץ. He writes, the two writes in the name רבנו פרץ, תעד טעונים ברכה לאחריהם, במקומם, that which we say, that they require a blessing afterwards in their place, דווקא כשאין לו עוד מאותו המין לאכול. That's only if he doesn't have any more from that type of food to eat. במקום השני in the other place. אבל אם יש לו עוד מאותו המין, but if he has from that type of food, לאכול שם to eat there in the other place where he's going, יאכל שם מעט, he should eat a little bit over there, ויברך רק שלא יהיה רעב מאכילה ראשונה. He can still bless over there as long as he's not hungry from the first eating. He didn't get hungry already. וזהו כדת הפוסקים, Rav Chazda. So he says this is according to the ones who pass like Rav Chazda. The ilu ledata poskim Rav Sheshet, because according to the ones who go like Rav Sheshet, kivan sheno yachol lechol adi v'shivarech lemafriya, since he's not able to eat according to that until he blesses already beforehand the Birkat Hamazon in the first place. So for sure he would have to return to his place to bless on what he ate. ודבר פשוט הוא דרב חסדא נמי לא קמה אלא בשלו היו לו היסח הדעת. It says also, it says it's obvious that according to Rabbi Chazda, right, we're talking about where there was no diversion, right, in his mind, right, interruption. ודווקא וכן כתב רשב"ם, and that's the way the Rashbam says that Rabbi Yochanan de'amar, that Rabbi Yochanan who said, "Shinui makom en tzarich levarech," that when you change your place, you don't have to bless. Hainu davka kashelo haya lo hesech hadat. That's only if you didn't have right interruption in between, ben time. So what does it mean interruption? What I mean to say is, we spoke about last week, which is that a person, like diverted himself into a different activity when he left that place. So that already causes like a total interruption, in his meal. So whatever he's doing afterwards, subsequently is going to be a new event altogether, So therefore, in a case like that, everybody agrees that you do require, to have a new blessing there. Okay, so that's the Bet Yosef. So we'll take a look at the Shulchan Aruch. And so it says here in the Shulchan Aruch, as we said, יש אומרים שבשעת המינים טעונים ברכה זה אחד במקומם. Some say, right, that when it comes to the Shivat Aminim, right, which is the 7 species, they do require to bless in their place, these after blessing. But some say it's only the grains, right? So in this case, we would say the rule is we go like this, the last opinion, right, which is the opinion of the Ri, and the Rosh and the Rif. So therefore, the rule would be that only grains require a blessing in its place. So there is a practical, application here, for us as well, because this means like this: when you eat, let's say, some cake or whatever, some mezonot, right, some cookies or crackers, whatever it is, right, which is grains made from grains. So there, you would need to bless in its place. So what does that mean? Before you leave the place where you ate, you should bless there and then leave, right? But on the other hand, right, when it comes to the 7 species, besides the grains, right, the other ones. So as we said, right, that includes olives, and all of right, those special fruits that Eretz Israel is praised for them, figs, dates, grapes, right, all those things. So there, those things would not require to bless in their place. So therefore, if a person, for some reason had to leave the place before he blessed the after blessing, he could bless that blessing also, in a different place if he needs to. But when it comes to the grains, so there, he really shouldn't leave before he blesses on them. Just like Birkat Hamazon. Same thing also on these as well, on the 5 grains. Yeah, so that's important to know. So it says the Ramah here, right? So he brings the other opinion, which was Hagat Maimoniot, that this only applies to bread, right? As we said, only for Birkat Hamazon. So that's the other opinion, right? So basically, we have here 3 opinions. That's exactly what we saw in the Bet Yosef, right? And the halacha is like the second one, which means only for grains. That's it. Okay, that was Shulchan Aruch. So We're gonna go back and do Dalit now because I think for some reason we didn't do it. So let's go back. I was a little bit confused in the beginning. So let's go back there and do Dalit. We just did Hey now. So those over here in Dalit, Katav Samak, right? It says in Bet Yosef. It says in the Samak, אם אכל פת במקום אחד וחזר ואכל במקום אחר, צריך לחזור וללכת במקומו הראשון. Right, so now this is also a very practical halacha, which is, if you ate bread in one place and then you ate in a different place, צריך לחזור ולברך במקומו הראשון ברכת המזון. So he says you do have to go back to your original place, he says, right? The samak. And bless over there Birkat Hamazon for what you ate there. ולכן אין צריך לברך במקום שני ואחד ואחר כך נסתפק הרבה בדבר. So he says, therefore, you don't have to go back, you don't have to bless in the second place, he says. And then afterwards, he says, right, that he had a big doubt about this, this rabbi. בסוף העלה שאינו מברך אלא במקום. So in the end, right, he concluded במקום שני that you should bless in the second place, right, which makes more sense, obviously. Well, if you ate in both places, then why should you go back to the first place, right? What's the point of doing that? כמו שנהגו הלכי הדרכים שאוכלים דרך הילוכם. So it says this is the way the custom of the travelers, The travelers, when they're eating, they just like eat and travel. They just like moving all the time. So in a case like that, right, we're never gonna obligate somebody to go back to where they were, when they started the meal, because they're just like going and eating, traveling, So therefore, what we tell them is, just keep on traveling and eating, and then when you're done, you'll bless wherever you are, right? You're the Birkat Hamazon. And that's what you do, when you're a traveler. So he says the same thing applies here as well. If you ate in two different places, so what you're going to do is bless in the second place because, that's where you finished. Now, but the question is, can you do this lechatchila, to eat in two different places? And the answer is no, right? So we're going to see that it's not allowed to do that. So we're talking here about b'diavad. If he did this, he went to eat in the second place without blessing in the first place. He shouldn't have done that. But if he did, that's the question, right? What do you do then, right? B'diavad. That's the question. But lechatchila, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to bless where you were, and then you're right. You want to continue somewhere else. Be my guest, right? No problem. Wash your hands over there, again, and eat there. So let's move on a bit, Yosef, a little bit. Right? There's more here. Katav עוד סמ"ק, says the סמ"ק also, החבורה שהיו יושבים בסובים ועקרו רגליהם ללכת כשהניחו מקצת חברים. So it says if there's a group of people, right, eating, and they were eating, and they left, right, and they went there, they went to a different place, but they left some people over in that group. אין טעונים ברכה, לא מפריע ברכת המזון, לא ולכתחילה ברכת המוציא. So he says they don't require really ברכת המזון or המוציא in the other place. אפילו בדברים שאין טעונים ברכה, even things which don't require a blessing in this place, in this place. דהילו בדברים טעונים ברכה לאחרים במקומם, because if it was for things that need blessing in their place, אפילו לא הניחו מקצת החברים, even if they didn't leave there some friends over in that group, נמי דשינוי מקום אין צריך לברך לפניהם. So he says because when you change your place, you don't have to bless the blessing before. That's the end of it. So it says Bet Yosef, right? He catches it right away here, right? That this language here that he's saying, this samak, is not, something is crooked there, right? Not straight, the language is not clear. So it says, שכתב אין טעונים ברכה לא מפריע ברכת המזון ולא לכתחילה ברכת המוציא. That he says we don't need ברכת המזון or המוציא, זה משמע דערב בפת, so it implies that he's talking about bread, ואחר כך העמידה בדברים שאין טעונים ברכה במקומם. And then he said he's talking about a thing which doesn't require a blessing in space. וז"ל, ספר, זה לשון הספר אוהל מועד. So he says this language is אוהל מועד, there's a book called אוהל מועד, המפסיק בתוך הסעודתו בדבר הרשות. So he says if he breaks up his meal, right, for something which is optional, right, not obligatory, אינו צריך לחזור ולברך. He doesn't have to really come back and bless. שאין זה חשוב ופסק. It's not considered to be really like interruption. וכן כתב הרם גבי הצריך לנקביו. The Ram said this also a person, has to use the bathroom, right? Which we talked about last week, right? The issue of, a person who has to go out to use the bathroom. So according to this, right, when you're going out to use the bathroom, you don't need to bless again when you come back, right? It's just, you're using the bathroom. What's the big deal? ויש מן הגאונים שמצריכים אותו לחזור ולברך, right? But he says there are some גאונים, on the other hand, who do require you to bless again, עד כאן לשנו. So that's the end of that posek there. So we'll see how he paskins here in the Shulchan Aruch, right? This is an important halacha. This happens all the time, to people. This kind of thing, they go from one place to another. They jump here, they jump over there. So the question is, right, what do you do in a case like that? Okay, so it says here, I'm sorry, let's see. So it says here, אכל, אם אכל פת במקום אחד וחזר אף לאכול מקום אחר. Let's say he ate bread, right, in one place, and then he went to another place to eat, right? אין עוד מברך ברכת המזון, אלא במקום שני. So he says, right, that you should bless in a second place. כמו שנהגו הולכי דרכים, just like we do the travelers, right? שאוכלים דרך הילוכם, because they eat as they go. ויושבים ומברכים במקום סיום אכילתם. So when did they bless? When they finish eating, right? Wherever they may be, when they finish, right? Wherever they are, right? Albuquerque, right? Or, whatever it is, right? Or, Austin, Texas, wherever you are, you bless over there. So same thing over here, that's where the way it goes. But as we said, right, lechatchila, you're not supposed to do this, to leave the place, go to a different place. But we're talking about if he did it by mistake or whatever, right? He didn't know what he was doing, right? And he went to a different place. So what we're saying is he doesn't have to go back to the old place, right, and bless over there. Once you left already, we don't require you to go back. There are some opinions, by the way, who do require you to go back, but we don't pass it like that, right? That's what it is. Yeah. So it's important to know that. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what if you're like very hurried to eat? Like there have been times when I've had maybe 10 minutes during parent-teacher conferences to grab something to eat, and they've had in the teacher's lounge some kind of like wraps or something like that where it requires me to say hamotzi, and I just don't really have time for the Birkat Hamazon. Can I go? Like, I know it would be best to do the Birkat Hamazon in the place that I ate, but sometimes I've got to get back to my meetings.
Right. But you're talking about like you're in one building, right?
It's one building, but like two different rooms.
Yeah, sure. So, in a case like that, it's a little bit different than what we're talking about here. Why? Because you could easily go back to where you were, the other room, and bless over there. So that's what you should do, if you just go back to that room when you're done, right? When you have free time. When you and then you bless over there, right? Go back there and bless, that would be the best thing to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, if it's not too much of a bother, you know what I mean? But here we're talking about, like there's already like a distance between that place and this place. And also we're talking about that he ate also in the second place. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit different than what you're saying. So over there, in a case like that, right, the best thing to do is just to go back, where you were, and to bless there, because it's just like the adjacent room, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Okay. So good. Let's see what else we got here. Just want to make sure we did everything here. Okay. Yeah, pretty much we got everything. Baruch Hashem. Okay, I guess we can go on. That's good. So just to recap, right? This whole thing here. Um, we said several things, right? Since we started, we got a little bit, confused over here. I got confused. It's not your fault, but anyway, right? I want to just recap the whole thing. The first thing we said was that when you're eating in a garden, which is like outdoors, so then we tell you, if you want to eat from like several trees, people don't do this today, whatever, unless they're living in the country, right? They have a farm or something, whatever it is, right? But anyway, right, if you have a situation like that, you're going out there, you want to eat, in a garden, several trees. Let's say you have an orchard or something, God knows, whatever, right? So the rule is that if you had intention to eat from all of them, we said that you don't have to bless on each one, right? As long as it's one garden. But on the other hand, we said that if you're going to several gardens, so then you would have to bless on each one, right? Because it's a separate place altogether. That was the first thing we said, right? And then, right, we just said now regarding the meals. If you're going for right, if you went from one, not if you're going, right? If you went, that's what I'm going to say. Why? Because you're not really supposed to be going like this, right? Going from one place to another. Meal hopping, right? Whatever you want to call it, right? Hopping around with meals. You really shouldn't be doing that. So what do I mean? Like just like starting one in one place and then, oh yeah, I'll finish over there, a different place. You're not supposed to do that lechatchila, you know what I mean? But if you did it, by mistake, whatever it was, let's say you forgot, whatever it was, right? So then we don't require you to go back to the first place. We tell you, you know what? Let's say, right, you ate, on this place, and then you went like, a quarter of a mile down, to a different place. So we don't require you to go back there, right, and bless over there. You can bless over in the second place where you finished your meal over there. Right? That's what we said just now. And then we said another thing, which is that, what about when it comes to eating cake and grains, things like this. Cookies, crackers, right, mezonot, things like this. Even, right, some types of kugel, right, noodle kugel, same thing, right? Pasta, right? Ravioli, right, all that stuff, whatever, right? So all that stuff, right, lasagna, right, same thing, right? These are all made from grains. So things like this, that what we say is that you also bless in the same place that you ate, lechatchila, when it comes to grains. But when it comes to the the seven species, right, that we do ala mechia, right, which includes all those fruits that Eretz Israel is praised for, olives, right, dates, figs, right, pomegranates, and right, grapes, all those things. So there, right, those seven species, there was an opinion that said you're also required to bless in the same place, right, which was the Rashbam. But apparently, right, the Shulchan Aruch didn't pass like that. So, if you want to be machmir, to do like everybody, so try to do it in the same place, because there's also the other opinion, right, the other side, which is the Rashbam and the Rambam. So if you want to be machmir like that, do it there where you ate it. But Shulchan Aruch seems to pass like the other opinion, which is the Ri and the Rosh, right, and the Rif. So therefore, right, you can get away with that, no problem, right? So if you want to bless in a different place, there's definitely room to be lenient there because that's halakha. Okay, that's about it, right? So let's move on. This is also an important halakha. We talked about this a little bit last week, right? We definitely touched on it. So it seems like he's talking specifically about this now. So let's see that important halakha. So it says this is Vav, right? So it says in the Tur, Katav Harav Yom Tov Rabbi Yehuda, right? This rabbi. אדם שנזכר בתוך הסעודה שלא התפלל ועמד והתפלל, right? So we're talking about somebody who was in the middle of a seudah, right? And all of a sudden, right, he remembers, oh, gee, I didn't pray, right? Let's say, usually the case is, right, he didn't do mincha, and it's almost like sunset. So, he's got to get, like, he's got to get, to prayers, right? So he got up and prayed. It says in the Torah. Let's see the Torah inside, right? This language in the Torah here. Right, so it says like this, ועמד והתפלל כשהוא חוזר צריך ליטול ידיו. Wow, look what it says, right? So it says, if you want to pray, in the middle of the meal, because you were time bound there, right? Otherwise, you're gonna, the time is gonna pass. So it says, כשהוא חוזר צריך ליטול ידיו. So when he comes back, when he returns, he has to wash his hands, he says. And to bless. ברכת המוציא, it has to do המוציא. הואיל וצלוי ומיכה בהדה הדדה לא אפשר. So he says, what's the reason why he has to do that? So he says, because you can't really, pray and eat at the same time, right? Maybe some people can do that, but most of us can't do this, whatever it is, right? In other words, since it's like two separate, activities that it's impossible to do them together, so therefore, right, a person has to wash his hands there, he says. And to bless, right? Hamotzi again. So in other words, he considers it to be like an interruption, basically, going to pray. Like we said, like, diversion. You're diverting your mind into some different activity. So therefore, he says you gotta wash your hands and make hamotzi again, right? To my knowledge, this is not the custom nowadays, right? As far as I remember, but let's see what the halakha turns out to be here. So he says, so the Reed paskins you don't need to, right? As we said, right? There's another opinion here. So he says we only say this regarding Birkat Hamazon, right? So that's something else. So meaning what? He says that we only say regarding Birkat Hamazon that you should, try to when you got diverted, right? You should do Birkat Hamazon and then start a new meal. Right. So you know what he's talking about here? He's saying that once you do Birkat Hamazon, it's considered to be like the end of the meal. There's no way to go back and eat again without doing hamotzi and washing again. That's what he's saying. Right? So that's exactly, how we do it today. So what does that mean? According to the Ri, a person who went out to pray and comes back, to finish his meal, does not need to wash and bless again, right? Hamotzi. So let's see Shulchan Aruch, right? How he paskins there. So it says like this, right? Misha nizkar betoch haseudah shelo yitpalel. As we said, right? He remembered in the middle of the seudah, they didn't pray. So now he wants to pray, right? Afilu im en shehut legmor seudato yitpalel. So even if there is not enough time to finish the seudah and pray, so he had no choice. He had to go. Shechayav le'afsik, right? He has to stop. Right? And it's not possible for him to eat until he prays. Im kol zeh lo have hefsek, right? It says, nevertheless, it's not considered to be an interruption, right? So therefore, as we said, right, the custom nowadays, like as the Shulchan Aruch here, the rule, the halacha is like that, that we do not uh, wash our hands and bless again just because we went to pray. So the truth is, this could happen also to a woman, who forgot to pray, whatever, let's say she has a custom to do, prayers, mincha, whatever it is, right? So some women have a custom to pray mincha, and if that's the case, so if she had to stop and pray mincha in the middle of the meal, right, same like the man, she wouldn't have to do anything, just come back to the meal and finish without any, right, washing hands or blessing. Okay. So it seems like we got one more here. Let's see what this is. Yeah, this one. So it says here, Kitab Rosh, right? It says the Rosh, Per Kama de Tanit, it's in the Tanit, Yud Dalid. בשם הרעב"ד, in the name of the Rabbi, שישן בתוך סעודתו, הבלק כמי שגמר סעודתו וסילק בשום, right? So this is also an interesting case, right? Which is that, what about if he, falls asleep in the meal? Right? Okay. This happens to people, especially when they get older, as you age, these things happen more often. So anyway, right, he fell asleep. So now the question is, does he have to, do anything when he gets up, right? To wash again, to bless again, right? Is it considered to be an interruption? So he says it's considered to be, according to this, right, the Rosh, in the name of the Rabbi, that it's considered to be like you finished your meal once you fell asleep. So that means you have to do Birkat Hamazon. If you want to continue eating, you'd have to, do Hamotzi again. Wash your hands again. But the Rosh argues with the Ravad. That's interesting, right? He brings the Ravad, but he argues with him. So he says, Brother Rosh, right? I don't hold like that. Why? Because like when you fall asleep, during a meal, it's like you're taking a nap, basically. It's not like real sleep. Like somebody goes to bed. So therefore, he says it's not really considered to be an interruption. So it doesn't resemble what we said in the Tosefta. ברכות, בעל הבית שהיה מסב מאכול קראו לחברו לדבר עמו אם צריך לברכה הפליג צריך לברכה למפריע כשהוא חוזר וצריך ברכה לכתחילה תיאטם פליג בדברי העסקים ועיקר יסך הדת אבל בשינת הרי. So he says it doesn't resemble the case where we said last week, right? We talked about this, where a person is called out by somebody, his friend, in the middle of the meal to go out and do something, in the street, whatever, to talk with somebody or whatever. So then we said, right, if he gets diverted and does some different activity, so that's considered to be like you finish his meal. So he has to bless again and everything, the whole thing, right? But here he says it's just, taking a nap, falling asleep on your chair, right, basically, right, as you're having your meal. So that's not really considered to be an interruption, so much like that. So it's not the same thing. It says also we look like Rav Chazda, פרק הרבה פסחים, the דברים הטעונים ברכה אחריהם במקומם כמה הדר. So it says when it comes to things which require blessing in their place, right, afterwards, he's coming back to his original meal. So therefore, he doesn't need another blessing. Even if he went right to go to the Chatan and Kala, right, to accompany them as a mitzvah, so it's all the more so, when you're just like falling asleep in the middle of the meal, right? Which is like, what happens usually, you weren't intending to do this, right? It's just like you fell asleep, so it's not something intentional. So therefore, it's considered to be still part of the meal. Right? Then so they didn't have to bless, right, Birkat Hamazon, and then to do another Hamotzi. Kol ha'olam, that's how the custom of the whole world, he says, right? That nobody's particular about this. The shinat betoch ha'seudah lo hefsek. So what does that mean? That sleeping in the seudah, right, is not considered to be an interruption. Okay, so we'll do Shulchan Aruch and we're done, right, with this chapter. So that's good. Let's see what we can find over here. We're done with this chapter. So it says, right, Adam she'ashan betoch ha'seudato, a person who slept, right, during the meal, she not right, just a nap, right, took a nap, whatever, he fell asleep on his chair, right? I hope his face didn't go into the soup, whatever, right? So, hopefully, everything got out okay there. Lo have hefsek, right? It's not considered an interruption, when you do that. Right? So says the Rama, וכן אם הפסיק בשעת דברי רשות כגון שהוא צריך לנקבה וכל זה. So says the Rama, right? Here's the answer to your question, right? Last week you asked about this, right? Which is, what about if he goes to the bathroom? Right? So says the Rama, if you went to the bathroom and you came back, you do not need to, right, to do hamotzi again. Right? Or bikat hamazon or anything like that. Obviously, you would have to wash your hands, as we said, right? There's no choice regarding that because you went to the bathroom. So, what does that mean? You should wash your hands like with a cup because you're doing this for a meal. You're still going to eat more, right? Especially you're going to have more bread. If you're going to have more bread, right? So you need to wash your hands, with a cup. That's the way it goes. Okay, I hope that's pretty clear for you guys. Thank you for coming tonight. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch, B'ezrat Hashem, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Kavod Harav, thank you so much.
God bless. Chanukah Sameach.
Chanukah Sameach.